Aloha and welcome to the Outrigger Waikiki, where we're back with another Surfers in Residence. My name is Marco and I'll be your host today in for Tammy Moniz. And big mahalo to everyone for the opportunity to sit down today and speak with internationally known local artist, Eduardo Bolioli. So welcome, join us.
Well, thank you for having me here.
Yeah, we have to thank Outrigger for letting us turn this lounge into a studio for us every weekend.
It's the most awesome studio in the world.
It's pretty cool. Let's talk about the beginning, because you've lived in so many places. Where are you originally from, sir?
Born in Uruguay, 1961.
All right. And now Montevideo, right?
Montevideo.
Okay,
Yeah.
so for those who don't know, that's the capital. Big, beautiful city right on the water. So what was that like in the 60s?
I don't remember much of the 60s because I was there for 6 years in the 60s. Then we moved to Switzerland.
Switzerland?
When my dad was in charge of the youth department of the World Council of Churches.
Okay.
So we were there for 5 years, and that's where I got started into art. Yeah.
So that's where the art started, in Switzerland.
Yeah, I had a great art teacher that pretty much taught me how to use geometrical figures to draw. I mean, it's in my genes already because my dad was a great artist, but this thing really helped me out. And one day the teacher stopped coming to our art class. She had an accident, so our regular teacher asked me if I could take over. And I took over for the rest of the year. I was teaching art at the age of 9.
That's incredible. And what was your father's medium? What kind of artist was he?
My dad painted with oils, but he did caricatures.
Oh,
he was
interesting.
really good at doing caricatures. You know, it's like, and actually, when I went to school, I wanted to do cartooning and caricatures.
Interesting. And so I didn't know about the Switzerland. How and when did you wind up going to New York?
New York was afterwards. We first, during 1972, things were pretty bad in Uruguay. And we were still in Switzerland. My dad went like, I have to be there. I have to go back to Uruguay. There's a lot of people that need help. A coup d'etat was approaching, and all human rights were being violated. So he decided to move the whole family to Uruguay in the worst time of Uruguayan history. We went back there, and I hated it. They had me cut my hair like military cut when I had long hair because it was like 1972.
Right.
There were hippies all over Switzerland. I wanted to be like get on a van, get a skateboard, all that kind of stuff.
You were teaching an art class.
Yeah, and suddenly I'm like the hair couldn't touch my neck, my shirt, or it was really bad, you know. But we were there for 6 years until my uncle got tortured. My uncle was a minister. He got arrested, tortured for about a month.
Terrible.
It's like, terrible. And it got to a point that my dad was called by Andrew Young, who was secretary for the United Nations under Jimmy Carter government. And he was asked to pass information on what was going on in Uruguay about the jails, the torture, so they could stop the military aid. My dad used to go to the prisons, and he had like a thick ring on his left hand. And the prisoners used to write on rolling paper. He would roll it and put it on these rings, those were the statements that then were passed to somebody at the embassy.
Wow.
And that was brought to Congress, and that's how they stopped military aid in Uruguay, and that was the route to go back to democracy.
Mm-hmm.
So problem was that at one point, the military's intelligence realized what was going on, So my dad got called to the American embassy, and he was asked. They told him, "Hey, you're gonna have to leave."
Hmm. And then that's when you went to New York?
Yeah. So the the guy in charge of the meeting was the person of the agricultural attaché. It has nothing to do with human rights or anything. So my dad went like, "Oh, you must be CIA," and the guy was this old surfer with a broken neck, and he broke his neck in Hawaii.
Okay.
And he was like leaning like this during the meeting. That's what my dad told me. And he said, "Well, we negotiated a month, so you can put your house for rent, and you can leave as soon as possible." And they got him a job at Cornell University in the
Wow.
Department of Theology. That's how I got to New York.
How do you got, and you got to New York in the 70s as a kind of a turbulent time for New York too, because bankruptcy, a blackout, a big explosion of art and music, right, with Basquiat and the
Yeah, well,
Ramones and everyone.
we got after the blackout. It was like
Okay.
1979.
Okay.
But Basquiat has just start going around the streets.
Hmm.
Warhol was there. Keith Haring was there too. And yeah, it was the greatest time to be in New York.
And a pretty good Spanish population in New York as well. Did you feel like you assimilated well, or was that tough coming from Uruguay?
Yeah, well, it was kind of weird because I didn't speak a word of English
I was wondering.
when I first came. And on the first or second day we were in New York, we went to Central Park, and I was thirsty, and I saw like this little cart selling Coke and refreshments. So I told my dad, "Hey, I want to drink something," and he said, "Well, yeah, let me go buy something for you." He said, "No, no, no, give me the money, and I'll just go and buy it myself. I have to start learning English."
Sure.
So I went something like, "One Coca-Cola, please."
Perfect.
And the guy turned around and said, "Chico, quiere?" And I'm going like, "Oh my God, I'm never going to learn English." It's like,
That's funny.
yeah.
And now, when did surfing come into the picture?
Surfing came a few years before, actually a couple of years before.
Because there's not a great scene in New York.
Surfing came in Uruguay. We have to go back to Europe actually, because in Europe, in Spain, on a trip to Spain, I found a skateboard way before Cadillac wheels were invented. You know,
Okay.
it was the clay wheels. It was a weird artifact that for somebody in Switzerland that's like far away from the beach or the surfing scene, it was okay. So what do you do on this? You sit down, you go down the hill, and that's basically what I did until a couple kids from the Netherlands in the neighborhood said, "No, no, you're supposed to stand up and surf on it on the sidewalk." The only thing similar to surfing that I have seen so far was a book of Air France with all the destinations, and Hawaii was on it, and there was a photo of somebody surfing in Waikiki,
Huh.
and Goofy on a Disney cartoon.
Wow.
I went back to Uruguay with that skate, and that was the first skateboard ever there.
And the first time you were in the water surfing was back in Uruguay.
Back in Uruguay.
Okay.
In 1978, I already had like a regular surfboard with like the urethane wheels, and it was raining, so I found a gym and start skating in the gym. And these three guys showed up, and I'm going like, "Oh no, they're gonna steal that board from me." You know, it's like, and they were big guys, kind of like tan, bleach blonde hair, and they went to me, "Hey, where you learn to do those things?" And I go, "Oh, by myself." "Oh, if you teach us how to do this, we'll teach you how to surf."
Nice.
And that was it. The next day, we were in a river mouth, and it was in the Rio La Plata. It's not really the ocean.
Right.
It's like a salty river that's the widest river in the world. And there were like 2-foot waves. And they start telling me about these boards that they shaped. There were two brothers that shaped boards, and they said, "Oh, this is just like Jerry Lopez board for pipeline." To me, it was like kind of like, who is Jerry Lopez?
Right.
It must be some Mexican guy or some guy from around here. And what is pipeline? The boards had a lightning bolt in the middle.
So they're ripping off his logo.
Yeah, they were like doing like everybody in the 70s was doing. Everybody wanted to have a board with a lightning bolt on it.
Sure.
So I had a problem, a genetical problem that growing up. It's like I was 17 years old at the time, but I looked like a 12-year-old.
Mm.
So I had the coordination of a 17-year-old, but the weight of a 12-year-old. So I grabbed one of these boards that were made for guys that were like 170 pounds. And I caught the first wave that came in. I caught it. I stood up and I had no problem with it. And these guys were like, oh my God, this guy's going to be like the Uruguayan champion someday. Because and the thing is like, those things were like longboards for me. And I was used to skateboarding all day long.
Sure.
So,
and now what was the culture down there? Was surfing, was it accepted or was it like a rebellious sort of activity? Because it took a while to get accepted on the mainland.
It was rebellious. If you were caught surfing in Montevideo, for instance, you would get arrested by the militaries.
By the military?
By the military. You were put in a cell all wet until your parents will come up and pick you up.
Oh, man.
It's like, so it was completely forbidden. On the ocean side, there weren't as many militaries on the beach or anything, so you could actually surf there.
Okay, safely.
Yeah, safely.
Wow. I mean, just with the normal risks of surfing.
Yeah, just normal, but without lifeguards.
Yes.
Or without anything.
Wow.
Because it was the Wild East, as we called it there, because there was nothing. Just a few fishermen's towns in there with awesome waves and nobody to surf them. It was paradise back then. The only problem was that CIA thing that we got to go to Ithaca, New York, right after I first started surfing, when I was ready to sell every single thing that I had except my skateboard to buy a board.
You finally got the bug, and then you got taken away from the ocean, brought to New York. But this is where the art kind of kicks in a little bit more, right? You wind up at the School of Visual Arts, a very prestigious school in Manhattan.
Yeah, I finished high school first in Ithaca, got kind of like a scholarship for Cornell University because my dad worked there. And my dad went to me, now, you want to do art? Go to an art school. You want to be a doctor? Go to Cornell.
Makes sense.
So I went to School of Visual Arts, which I wasn't accepted at School of Visual Arts.
No.
Because I had terrible SATs.
Okay.
I didn't speak English.
I was going to say, how was your English at this point?
It was a little bit better, but when I did my SATs, all I did is, okay, what do I mark down? Mark this down, that, whatever. I had my name right.
Right.
It's like, it took me a while to talk to them and kept calling and insisting. And one day I just called them up and said, listen, I just want to have a meeting with you guys. Bring my portfolio. If my portfolio is not good enough to be accepted in your school, you tell me right away and I'll go back to work in a supermarket or whatever.
Sure, fair enough.
It's like, and they said, okay, fine. I went to the meeting. They looked at my portfolio, and by the time I got home, there was a message on the answering machine saying I was accepted.
Nice. And what was your portfolio consisting of then? Drawings, pen and ink, oil?
Mostly cartoons.
Cartoons.
It's very European stylish cartoons, not the superheroes or anything like that. And I had the influence of Mordillo and who's actually from Argentina, and Kino. But it was mostly cartooning caricatures. And I was so rebellious back then that when they told me that I got accepted, I said, well, I need some time.
Oh, no.
So I took 6 months and I said, well, I didn't have any money. All of a sudden I had to pay for school without money.
All right.
And I said I went to work in a supermarket and as a gardener, landscaper, doing all kinds of odd jobs for 6 months. And I started during the spring semester.
Okay. What were some of the, because now you're starting a formal training as at an art school. What are some of your influences or heroes that you discovered there?
The good thing about school of visual arts back then, I don't know how it is now, was that to be a professor there, you had to be a well-known artist. You had to be a successful artist or being somebody that changed trends. And one of my professors was Harvey Kurtzman.
Okay.
And Harvey was the guy that started Mad Magazine.
Oh, I thought the name sounded familiar. Right
And
on.
he did the painting of Alfred Newman.
Yes.
And,
oh, wow.
So then he started Annie
And you
Fanny.
liked cartoons. You liked
And I like cartoons.
Yeah.
And it took me about 2 weeks of school to pretty much become his protege.
Okay.
Because he thought that I had like this very European style that was different from the rest of the class. Everybody else wanted to be the next cartoonist or inkman at Marvel. And I was going on a totally different path. And my colors were totally different from anything he had seen so far. After the third class, he went like, "Hey, do you want to come to Tierney's with us?" And I'm going like, "Where's that?" "Oh, it's an Irish bar down the street on 23rd and 3rd. That's where the school was. And I went to the Irish bar with him, and he had a couple of other alumni there. And every time after his class, he would have a couple of beers and then get on the train to Connecticut. That's where I got really into talking to him, learning more, learning his history. And he was best friends with Goscinny, who was a creator of Asterix.
Okay.
And he had worked with Goscinny in New York, and Goscinny couldn't make it in New York. But that's where he got the idea for Lucky Luke.
Okay.
So it's part like cartooning history, I guess.
And all the while, you're thinking about, you've got surfing bubbling in the back of your head.
Yes, because at that time we had moved from Ithaca, which is upstate New York, about 5 hours away from the beach, to Montclair, New Jersey.
Okay.
And New Jersey had waves.
Yes.
And New York had waves. So I used to go to skip class, go to Rockaway, and Rockaway Beach, which was really sketchy back then.
Yeah, it kind of still is.
I went on my old Volvo the first time, and then I realized I shouldn't go with the Volvo, so I used to put on the wetsuit inside the Volvo in Manhattan, take the subway with my surfboard, go to Rockaway Beach, surf there. And
I've taken that train ride.
Back.
It's a long ride to be in a wetsuit on a subway. That's a long ride.
But especially imagine 1981, 1982, wearing a wetsuit in New York City, surrounded by all these people in like suit and ties, all these yuppies looking at me like, or like even stopping the car in Manhattan and they go, "Dude."
Yeah, here in Waikiki, seeing someone walk down the street in a bathing suit or with a board is normal, but in Manhattan, that would definitely stand out.
Yeah, it would. I mean, it would be the same thing if you see somebody with suit and tie in Waikiki. What's wrong with this guy?
Yeah, something's up.
And that's when I started surfing really in New York, New Jersey area.
So what prompted the move, obviously surfing, but what made you think to finally go to that spot on the map, Hawaii, that you saw so many years before?
First, I went back to Uruguay.
Okay.
There was an article in Surfer Magazine that said Southern Cone Expedition. And it had Martin Potter and Paulo Tendas from Brazil and Pat Mueller from Florida. They were traveling around from Brazil to Uruguay and Argentina. And I opened up and I'm going like, oh my God, they have these waves in Uruguay? So I took a semester off. And back then the exchange was so good that I could live on $1.50 a day
Wow.
and camping out by the beach in a place called La Paloma.
And the political climate had calmed down?
Not quite, but I wasn't with my dad. And the day that I arrived there, I still had a Uruguayan passport. I went to customs with my passport. They looked at my passport and they said, "Wait here." And I started sweating. You know? And the guys went to the back room, came back, and they said, "Oh, you're Oscar Bolioli's son." Being like already Americanized, I went like, "Duh, isn't that what it says on the passport?"
Oh,
You know?
great.
And they threw the passport at me and said, "Be very careful. We're going to be watching you."
Oh, wonderful.
But I went to the coast. I was camping on the forest right by the ocean. Spent 6 months over there just surfing.
Awesome.
And yeah, it was a great time. Came back to New York and I started seeing all these gray, and everything was gray all over again.
Yeah.
And all these people like pushing and the subways and everything. I said, okay, wait, I got to take another semester off. Worked as a landscaper, supermarket, pizza delivery, whatever, and gathered enough money, went back to Uruguay. And I ventured to the south of Brazil this time also. A bus from Montevideo to La Paloma and then to Porto Alegre, and kept following a swell. I would surf during the day, get on the bus and head back north until we made it all the way to Rio.
And was this just obviously a passion, or were you thinking professionally at the time? Did professionally really exist? Was that even an option really at the time?
Not for me. If you
Okay.
see me surfing, you go like, "Oh, this guy's smart. He realized he couldn't be a professional surfer."
Okay. All right. I was curious.
No, I could be an average
Sure.
at best, and I think I'm still at that level. That's the funny part, because that's what brings me to surf art. I could never be on Surfer magazine, a photo of myself. That was my dream. Just having a tiny 2-inch by 2-inch photo of myself on a magazine, that would have been
Right.
epic. I could have my art on the magazine.
And so how did that happen? So you got to Hawaii, and first of all, if you try to order a Coke in Spanish in Oahu, I don't know how much Spanish is getting spoken out here. How was adjusting to Hawaii?
I was speaking English pretty well back then, because it had been 5 years had passed
All right.
since, actually 6 years. It was 1985 when I first moved here. But I had a hard time at first because I was here in Waikiki and people were talking to me in Pidgin. And I'm going like, okay, what does this word mean?
Right.
It was kind of learning a new language
All over again.
all over
Yeah.
again. And but it was really cool. It's like I adapted right away.
You obviously found your place because no more supermarkets. You were working on the beach.
Yeah, I got a job on the beach.
How did that happen?
I met this French guy, Kareem, who was a beach boy he was crewing the Monakai, and I was living right across the street on Coral Avenue, and went down to the beach every day. I talked to him. Since I spoke French because I lived in Switzerland, we became really good friends. And when they said, "Hey, we need a crew. If you can speak several languages, it'd be good to bring tourists." So I said, "Great." And I start working on the Manukai with Woody Brown.
Nice first gig.
Well, no, actually, my first job was in this hotel.
Really? Here at Outrigger?
Yeah.
Amazing.
It was selling pearls in the oyster in the lobby.
Yes.
Here.
Okay.
And then I went to work at the Blue Dolphin, which is where Duke's is at now,
Okay.
or the poolside restaurant, and in '86.
Wow. So this is really full circle.
Now having my art here at the hotel is like, wow.
So now, how did you get to the boards? Because when I see art on a surfboard, I immediately think of subway trains, and I think of the strategy of an artist. Because to participate in art is expensive. You have to buy canvases, you have to buy oils,
Yeah.
and the nice thing about a surfboard, you don't have to hope somebody comes into your gallery. You do art on a surfboard, and it goes into the community. So was this a strategy or was
Well,
it an accident? How did you get onto the boards?
I mean, the reason I moved to Hawaii was I wanted to paint surfboards.
Oh, okay. So it was already a
I
goal.
wanted to have my art on Surfer magazine somehow.
Okay.
And the only way to do that was to be able to paint a board for a professional surfer. I went to every single factory I could. The doors were being shut on my face. And I started going to, well, I was working here and said, well, maybe I can't paint surfboards here. Maybe one place told me, oh, you're too howdy for here. And go like, okay, all right, well, I'll take it. It's like
Right.
whatever. And I started going to this nightclub called Pink Cadillac, and Pink Cadillac was the trendiest nightclub back then. And again, there was a Frenchman that was a PR there, whose grandfather or great grandfather invented the sewing machine.
Okay.
So he's like, they introduced me to him, and when Vincent found out I spoke French, it was kind of like, oh, you know how French are. And I was like, oh, you speak French, that's it. So he gave me a VIP card, and he started introducing me to everybody as an artist. And then the owners of Pink Cadillac came up. They said, hey, we got to decorate the club for this special party. What is this party for? Blue Hawaii. And Blue Hawaii had on their team Martin Potter, my hero at the time, and Sean Thompson was on that team, Sonny Garcia, like all the best. It was the best team here in Hawaii. And I did, what do I do? What do I do? I started doing caricatures. So I did a caricature of Mark Fu. Mark Fu showed up at the club on that night. There was a line of over a block long just to get in for the Blue Hawaii party, because you were able to get like, I think a t-shirt, Blue Hawaii t-shirt, if you weren't first 100 people who showed up. And Mark saw his caricature, said, I want it. So
Nice.
the sister of the owner of the club came over to me and says, oh, Mark Fu wants the caricature. I said, well, you guys own it. Oh, we're going to give it to him. I said, no. Wait, let me talk to him.
Nice.
So I went to Mark. Mark came to me, actually, and he said, oh, I really want this. Can I take it home with me after the party? And he said, oh, why not? Because that's already paid for. So I would have to convince the people here, if you introduce me to Glenn Minami, I'll make sure they give it to you.
Every good artist has a little hustler in there.
So he just grabbed me. He said, hey, come over here. So we went to the VIP area, and there was Glenn Minami, and he introduced me to Glenn, and he went like, this is my friend Eduardo. He's an amazing artist. And we had just met.
I love it.
I'm going like, Mark is my hero now. And a week later, I was painting surfboards at Blue Hawaii.
Oh my God. See, because I was going to ask, when did your boards go from in the water to on the wall? But they kind of started on the wall in this club, already being respected as pieces of art.
Yeah, I used to make them out of foam core and make boards on the club for the decoration on foam core, and that was it. But I never got to paint an actual board. I had only painted one board that I shaped myself, glassed myself, broke it on the first day, and never did that again.
You broke it on the first day.
I mean, I didn't know how to. We didn't have YouTube.
Right.
And
True trial and error.
I glassed it with sand and resin.
Okay.
I started working there, started painting boards, was there for about a month doing the Martin Potter, the bullseye model. And I was getting really bored with it. One day, Glenn Minami comes up, sees, okay, let me see what you can do. Do whatever you want. And I just painted a board. He came back and looked at it and said, oh, this is not going to work. And I had tried to bring what was in the streets in New York to a surfboard on the rails. And he didn't like it at all. And this kid that this Grom, the typical Grom at the at the factory that's trying to get a discount on the board. So he goes and sweeps the floor, came back to the board and look, bro, this is so rad. Can you paint one for me like that? This is how I want my board. And Glenn looks at him and he goes like, okay, there's something in here. Because this is a guy that's 15 years old.
Yeah.
And we're going to tap into something totally new. So he said, do 5 boards. We'll take him to the shop, see what happened. They were gone on the first day.
Awesome.
And then I was able to start experimenting. I could do whatever I want. And that's how it came to Posca.
Oh, yes, to the markers.
I wanted to draw on a surfboard.
Right, because you're a caricaturist.
Yeah, and also I wanted the foam absorb the paint, but also it left all these little white dots from the sails, and I didn't like that. I wanted stronger colors, more vibrant, and I didn't want to use the airbrush. And I started experimenting. I tried Pentel, I tried Sharpies, I tried everything. And every time we sprayed it, the whole thing started running all over. And I was using Posca for some of my artwork already. I didn't fix it. Gouache, it was water-based. I think, this is not going to work. But it was the last shot I had at this board because we kept painting it, sanding it, repainting it, spray it, sanding, the whole process, like, I don't know how many times. And I tried the Poscas, we sprayed it and stayed there. I'm going, oh my God, this is something new. This works.
So you have the revelation and it's a huge success. And then you get chosen by Absolute to do the Absolute Hawaii. So now that all of a sudden is putting your art into Time Magazine. It's a major campaign. Did you, what were some of the effects of that? Did you notice knockoffs, people all of a sudden copying your style or your techniques?
Not really, not back then. But the problem was like I left right away because Absolute at the same time told me that your Absolute Hawaii ad did really well. It was really strong. We're launching a Latin American campaign called Absolute Fiesta. And we want you to go to Uruguay for a year and do the Absolute Uruguay painting.
Now, is that a triumphant return home as a hero, or is that an offer you can't refuse?
It was kind of like I was in between jobs there because I had just left Locomotion. I needed to do something new. I wanted to go full time into painting and not have to do T-shirt designs or thinking about marketing all the time. I just wanted to go wild with my art. And I figured that Uruguay was a good place because costs were pretty low. And also I could be selling. I had just signed with a new art rep here in LA, New York, and San Francisco. So if I sold one painting per month, I would live like a king over there.
Right.
And so, and also the offer from Absolute was really good. So I said yes.
Okay.
I took it. Problem was I got there and Seagram's bought the worldwide distribution rights for Absolute, so the whole deal was off. And I was offered money for tickets to come back. My ex-wife was pregnant at the time, so I couldn't come back to Hawaii. Pregnant wife and no insurance.
Right.
It didn't work. And so we decided to stay to have the baby. And then things went kind of south. So I ended up spending 20 years working in marketing for Absolute in Uruguay, but totally away from my art.
And what prompted the return almost 20 years later, coming back to Hawaii, back to surf, back to art in the surf community?
They had some major cutoff of the company I was working with, and that was Pernod Ricard, the French company, multinational, and I was one of them.
Okay.
I was already over 50, and they didn't need me anymore. So I opened up a club. I closed it pretty much as soon as I'd opened it. because it's like I realized
Tough business.
I'm not in tune with it. I'm not. It's not. I had a bar before when I first got to Uruguay on this trip back, and it did really well. But now I'm going like I gotta find Eduardo again.
Right.
I gotta find that guy that was laughing all the time, that was taking adventures, that was painting.
It's a great way to put it. So it looks like you found Eduardo again.
So I mean, didn't have work. I ate up all my savings, and I told my two sons, "Hey, I gotta go. I'm really sorry, but I'm gonna have to get going. I'll come back as soon as I can." And I made the move, and people here really helped me out. It's like guys like Junjo offer me a solo show at his store in Chinatown, and that got me going.
Yeah, and I see now, I mean, going to your website for anyone who isn't familiar, it's amazing because big canvases to beach towels, prints, boards. I mean, you really have quite an extensive portfolio now. And social media changed so much from when you were an artist in the 90s to when you came back in 2014. Do artists still chase gallery walls and try to get big ad campaigns, or is it easier and safer to go it alone and just sell your art direct to the consumer via websites and whatnot?
Well, I got lucky in 2014 because social media, Instagram was owned by another company, and Instagram was about images
True.
and art and quality. So I started posting on Instagram and got an immediate reaction.
Awesome.
Now Instagram is different. It's more like TikTok. It's more like, and I don't want to be dancing in front of one of my paintings.
Right.
So now it's a lot harder to be an artist or even a photographer, which what Instagram was started for. So I don't know. I'm still chasing, the gallery walls, because a gallery has a salesperson
True.
that will inform the person about your art.
True.
Right now, people look at your Instagram and they're going like, "Oh, 2 seconds. Oh, I like this image. I don't like it. That's it." And you might get 10,000 views,
Right.
but 30 likes.
Right.
So it's very confusing. And it's not really my game anymore. I still post on it, but I leave that to the kids.
Well, and now, whether it's a gallery or let's talk just for a moment about the beautiful installation right here in the Outrigger, talking about full circle. Tell us about the pieces that you have here at the Outrigger.
Well, I wanted to do a piece about the Olympics, commemorating the first Olympics with surfing on it.
So perfect.
And I had arranged some things for Tokyo in 2019. And I was planning on doing 20 surfboards with the most iconic surfers throughout all the ages before the Olympics started.
That's an ambitious project.
Yeah, and suddenly COVID came in. So that put everything on hold. We didn't know when the Olympics were going to happen. Then when we got word of what was going to happen, it made no sense because I couldn't travel there.
Right.
And I couldn't send 20 boards for nobody to see them.
Right. Yeah.
So I had to start rethinking of the whole project. And I'm going like, wait. Surfing started in Waikiki, not in Tokyo.
Right.
So this is the Olympics, but we should commemorate surfing and Hawaii's biggest Olympic champion, Duke Kahanamoku.
I love it. It's beautiful.
So I start centering on that image of Duke, and we're like, okay, I can do other. I'm going, no. I'm gonna do the first U.S. Olympic team, and sent that to my friend Jonathan Rothmish from the Aroma Cafe and said, "Hey, I want to do an exhibit, but I need I need a place that can have the paint, the boards there for a long time." And he said, "You got to talk to Outrigger."
That's great. Well, we can thank him. That's a great idea.
And that's how it all came out.
I have a couple questions that I always love to ask folks. And one is that Duke said, whatever you put into surfing, surfing will give you 10 times back. I have a feeling that surfing has done you well.
Duke fell short. It's more like 100 times
100
back.
times.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. Just walking around, getting shakas, shaking hands with everybody in this island. It's like more than I could ever ask for.
Right on. And another one is from Ben Ipo, where he said that surfing will give you images in your brain that'll be burned there forever. And usually images of, of a wave that you're conquering or that's conquering you. But I noticed that a lot of your art are from scenes inspired from you and your wife diving or in the water already. Is there any image in your brain that you haven't been able yet to capture in your art, surf related, that you're still chasing, trying to capture?
Art is a continuous change. If you're stuck doing exactly the same thing, you're not an artist anymore. You just became a product.
Right.
And I never want to be a product.
Which happened to a lot of artists from that scene that we talked about in the 70s, even Herring and different, Peter Max for sure, Warhol, danced on the edge where it became sheer product.
Yeah, it's funny. I met all three of them.
Yeah. I thought maybe you would have.
Yeah, I met all three of them. But it's like, I don't ever want to have my art in a supermarket.
Right. Okay.
It's maybe on a product that simulates Hawaii, that wants to show aloha on the product, and they want my art on it. That'd be fine. But I don't want to be in that place.
Right.
It's art should be in a place where it can be appreciated, and it has to be shown. Not in the shelf case.
Yeah, well, your work is definitely appreciated and celebrated here in the hotel. And last one before we go, tell me a little about the Eddie Would Love piece, because that one I thought was really charming. And I remember on Hawaii News Now, you were wearing a Basquiat T-shirt while you were talking about it. I spotted that T-shirt.
Yeah, it's well, the Eddie Would Love came out the day of the Paris attacks on the cartoon magazines. And since I lived there,
I didn't even make that connection that they were attacking other artists.
Yeah, when they put the bomb on the magazine, and many cartoonists died that day. And I had friends from all over calling me up, saying, "Hey, Eduardo, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?" And I was gonna start thinking about doing a piece about that, because hey, I started as a cartoonist, and then I'm going, wait. I don't live there. I live in Hawaii. We're supposed to be something else. We're different. And but thing kept on my mind. And I was working on a show, and I started thinking about guns. Then I'm going like, oh, big guns. I go, oh, rhino chasers, Waimea guns. And that's how the piece Eddie Would Love instead of Eddie Would Go came out, because what would have happened in that situation? And like Eddie Aikau was there.
Right.
It's like he was known to mediate. He was known to bring peace on the North Shore.
Oh, okay.
He's the one that called the council,
Yes.
and with otherwise guys like Rabbit Bartholomew,
With the Australians,
the Australians would have got, hammered. It's like, and he was able to bring aloha into the table instead of division, and he gave his life for others. So I mean, to me, he's like the ultimate hero.
And I didn't understand that as an ambassador. It's true, yeah. Brokering the peace with that documentary, busting down the door. They were under lock and key for 3 days while he was brokering an exchange for them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, who else will do that?
Yeah.
And also face your own community
Yeah.
and say, hey, hold on.
And vouch for a stranger.
I mean, how much more aloha can you have?
Yeah, no, that's a big
It's-
heart. Well, I'm so glad I brought it up because the immediate connections of Big Guns, but the appropriateness of him as an ambassador and as a negotiator, that's a very clever connection you made there. I wouldn't have thought of that. That's really touching, and what a wonderful way for an artist to express support to other artists that had been attacked. You know, that's a beautiful way to do it. Well, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And that's another episode of Surfers in Residence. I want to thank Eduardo Bolioli. You have to check out his website, eduardobolioli.com, where you'll find incredible pieces, some on layaway, some you might be able to afford right off the bat. I'll be on the layaway program and hopefully live a long time and pay him back. And as always, if you enjoy this conversation and you want to see more episodes, make sure you hit like and subscribe and send it to your friends and check out his website and do the same. And in the meantime, mahalo for watching and aloha.